We have some major updates of mixed martial arts, starting with the news. Kamaru Usman just went off on Belal Muhammad. Ever since Belal became champ, there's been some beef between them. In the latest episode of Pound for Pound podcast, Usman went off on Belal again and showed how annoyed he is.
I tell you what, man, Belal Muhammad's gotten pretty cocky with that belt.
Imagine how I feel. I'm like, who the f is this guy? Who the f is that guy? I didn't know who this guy was a couple years ago or last year. I didn't hear his name. I don't even remember his name. You know, more power to Belal if that's how he feels. I mean, he's dropping, he paid for someone to do a diss song or whatever.
Turn it up, turn that up.
Hey.
Turn it up. I
got in the locker room, lacing up his worn out gloves, thinking about that golden belt, all his dreams of love.
Ooh, hit the best move. That song was as corny as can be. Looking at a golden belt, I have 6 of them in the room next door. Yeah, I can look at belts all day. And if I want his belt, I'm coming to take his belt. I want the fight, but I want the fight. But when you've got him saying, I'm gonna sit down, I'll let you guys fight, and then I'll fight the winner. Listen, that's not a recipe for how you make money. So it is what it is. But at some point, he's gonna have to step in there with me, and we're gonna settle it. But yeah, it is what it is. Keep dropping corny, weak diss track. Was that what that's called? A diss track? It was like a lullaby or something. It's a nice country lullaby for me. And obviously with this rumor with Shavkat, we're right there to where if the champion decides to fight sometime in the next year and a half, 2 years, we'll both fight the champion. But if the champion is not deciding to fight, the division is going to have to move on and fights are going to happen. But listen, I am scared of no one. On less than 9 days notice, I flew to the other side of the world to fight supposedly the scariest guy. I'm scared of no one. Believe none of these rumors.
Tony Ferguson promises to bring back Prime Tony in his next fight. This comes after fan asked Tony if he could bring back Prime Tony for just one fight. In response, Tony shares this. He wrote, "You can bet on it. I'm under construction for destruction." Sounds like Tony could be fighting in the UFC soon, but let's see how things play out. Robert Whittaker manager revealed that Sean Strickland declined an offer to fight Robert Whittaker. After Whittaker's most recent fight in Riyadh, there was an offer to have him fight Strickland in Perth, which Whittaker was willing to do. But Strickland refused the fight. This information came out in a recent interview with Submission Radio.
And did you guys try to fight Sean? Did you?
Yeah. Straight after the last fight in Riyadh, they said to us straight away, does Rob want to fight? Like literally on the day.
Yeah, wow.
They said, does Rob want to fight Sean in Perth? And we said straight, yeah, sure, absolutely. And apparently he said no. So, yeah, that was it.
Chael Sonnen has some words on Colby Covington versus Dustin fight.
Hey, Siri, text Dustin Poirier. Are you fighting Colby in November? Text Colby. Are you fighting Poirier in November? Why is Uncle Chael having to find out from the internet and not from you? Question mark. Hope you're well. Period. Colby Covington, Dustin Poirier. Guys, is this on? Is this on or not? And by the way, if it is, I believe that is one of those fights that they would make 5 rounds.
The top trophy goes to Dustin Poirier.
These guys went at it pretty good, and there is a real story here. I would not blame Dustin in the least for not wanting to go up to 170, not to mention if it is going to be his last fight, which he has said. That is a long and painful evening, but I couldn't imagine Dustin getting that phone call and him saying no. I can't picture Colby saying no. If that fight and the other rumors that we're hearing about Madison Square Garden are in fact all on the same card, there's another title fight offered, and now I'm wondering if you guys have been told that or if I got inside scoop, so I'm leaving that out. Do you guys know about the other title fight that's being offered that night, top of Jones? I mean, you're talking about one of the great cards ever.
Jake Paul makes claims about why Conor McGregor isn't fighting in the UFC. So recently, Jake Paul talked about McGregor's comeback. He believes the UFC is holding back Conor McGregor from fighting right now because they want to use his remaining 2 fights as leverage during negotiations for their next TV deal. Apparently, Conor's got 2 fights left on his contract, but the UFC wants to use that in their negotiations. If Conor fights now, he'd have only 1 fight left, which would make him less valuable in the negotiations. So they're waiting to get a better deal by keeping Conor's 2 fights as part of the bargaining power.
That's what's happening to Conor McGregor right now. For the people at home who don't understand it, basically they're like, why is Conor not fighting? Conor has 2 fights left on his fight deal, but the UFC is trying to renew their rights deal because they license their content, which are the fights, to platforms. So they're trying to renew their deal with, they're negotiating multiple people, but let's say it's going to go with ESPN. They're trying to renew the deal and get them the most amount of money. A part of that negotiation is, hey, we have Conor McGregor for 2 more fights. But if he were to fight now, that wouldn't be a part of the negotiation. The company would be like, oh yeah, well, you only have Conor for one fight. So that's why Conor's not fighting right now. And this is what they do to the fighters is, if you sign the contract that you didn't sign, if you win, then you're like locked in for 3 more fights or something like that. And there's each contract is different, but you basically don't want to win because then you're locked in for 3 more fights.
Conor McGregor made a big statement about his next move. So recently, McGregor has made it clear that he will run for president in the next 2025 election. This raises a major point. If he runs, his chances of returning to the UFC are almost impossible. Conor hasn't exactly confirmed whether he'll fight Chandler before running for president or if it will happen beforehand. Either way, with this kind of statement, McGregor's UFC comeback seems difficult for now. In his statement, Conor said he's worried about his country because the government's not doing its job right and it's causing problems for people. If he becomes president, he's going to make sure things are done right. We'll see what happens next.
Daniel Cormier has some words on Jorge Masvidal's return.
Jorge Masvidal speaking about coming back to fighting. He's 39 years old. He has lost his last his last 4 MMA fights. He lost a boxing match. He said he will come back, start somebody, and the UFC will be begging him to fight for a championship. My question to you is, do you care now? Do you care like you did in 2019? Do you care like you did when he was on that amazing run where he made himself from a guy that was middling, from a guy that was a bit of a journeyman, to a main event attraction? Him and Kamaru Usman sold a boatload of pay-per-views. But do you care today, in 2024, to see Jorge Masvidal come back and fight someone? He said Michael Chandler continues to wait for Conor McGregor. He goes, I can start Chandler in December. And then he can go back to waiting for Conor because we know Conor's not going to fight me. He doesn't believe that Conor McGregor is ever going to fight again. Hey, that sentiment, guys, is being shared by so many. And honestly, I don't know that I don't agree with them at this point. It was getting scary in terms of Conor. But still, it boils back to the same question. Do you care now